Hi, I'm Dan Webster from National Cancer Institute, and I'll just get right into it. I want to tell you about a unique property of melanoma skin cancer in that it goes from a potentially benign state to a malignant state in a visually detectable way. We can see this happen because it's happening on our skin. And that could be a mole that is benign, like the one I have on my face right here. It's very round and it's very benign. And that could change to become melanoma. Or you could have a mole that never existed and then later in your life popped up where it never existed before. So forward one. This is something that, far from just being of scientific interest to me, something I care about a lot at my house because my wife is at very high risk for melanoma. She has very light skin, she has many, many moles, and a family history of melanoma. And so when we think about the agency that we have to try and prevent this, one thing that we did and continue to do is go see a dermatologist every year. And that's about as often as you can get to a dermatologist, given that they're relatively rare and hard to see. The next thing that we tried, forward one if you would, is self-tracking the moles by just taking pictures frequently. And what I can tell you is that this is a logistical nightmare because the photos end up in your photo stream and it's hard to keep track of them, and then which one if you have hundreds of moles. And then they're not quantitative. So if you take a photo here and then next month you take it here at a different angle, it's not quantitative. And being a scientist, it's got to be quantitative if you want to detect those really small changes. So what I did was to build an app, and it's going to take much more than 3 minutes to talk about this, so I won't, but talk to me afterwards about how after I built this app, I met Steven, and that started the ball rolling for a number of things. Forward, if you would. To build this app into a research study that includes both Research Kit and Research Stack, together with Sage, with OHSU, and then with Deb Estrin at Cornell Tech to make it available on both iOS and Android. So forward. The way that it works is 3 steps. It's kind of like Google Maps for your moles. So you drop a pin on your mole, so you locate where it is and also where your moles aren't. And for people that have a lot of moles, like my wife, you want to keep track of exactly which one you're doing so they get auto-assigned a name inside the app. So if you go forward. And then to the quantitative part. So if you take a picture at one position and then you change it the next, you need to have a way to internally normalize this. For the scientists in the audience, you need a gap DH. And so what we can do is just put a coin in that photo, and that's never going to change. And no matter what the angle is at, it's always going to be the same. So we can internally normalize to get an absolute measurement in millimeters of how big that mole is. So we measure it, and then forward one. Then monitor it over time. And so there's a dashboard to be able to kind of at a glance have a look at all of your moles and how much they're quantitatively changing or not. They're not all puns, by the way. Some of them are just like famous people too, and you can change them. One forward if you would. So in the spirit of openness, this is my data, and this is how the app helped me. So you can see here at a glance, you have the sizes of my moles that I took just plotted on this line here. And in dermatology, there is this idea that if you have one mole that is significantly different from all the others, that's your ugly duckling. And that's the one you need to keep track of. So most of my moles, if you can see me, are between, say, like 2 or 3 millimeters, and that's pretty normal. And then I have this one on my back that I never even knew about, and I got it checked out. Turns out to be totally benign and normal, but I specifically went into the dermatologist and said, this is the one I want you to look at because I know my data and I own my data. It lives on my phone. So in addition to this being useful for me, it is now a research study that people can contribute their data to. Forward one. And we published this recently, and this data is open. This data is available on Synapse, and it has helped us to answer this question of maybe you've asked a dermatologist friend of yours, hey, is this normal? And so now we have a distribution of what is actually normal in terms of the size of your moles. And we have moles measured from all across America, around various parts of the body. Forward one, if you would. And what's really cool about this, and why it's important that it's open, and that we have this platform in Synapse to do that, is that very recently a work was published that showed that AI can be just as good as dermatologists at picking out benign from malignant tumors or benign moles on your skin. So this is really exciting, and they did it with just a single image with no context. But if you go forward, one of the exciting parts about this app is that it actually does bring that context. So that instead of just being a 300 by 300 pixel image, you know, is this someone who is an 80-year-old male and it's on his back? Is this someone with a family history of melanoma? And then if you can click one more, it goes from a static to a dynamic image of this mole, from a photo to a GIF, if you will, because you can repeatedly measure this every month and see if it's changing. And that change is really much more important than just the static size in terms of, is this progressing from benign to malignant state? So with that, I will end, and thank you all very much.